Hi everybody. I'm sitting here. We're doing 30 Days Until Done, a trip home, and I'm sitting here on a really nice day in Claremont. I mean, it's beautiful, lovely, wonderful. Meanwhile, in Syria, there's a genocide happening, and meanwhile, we're in Brazil. The Zika virus is exploding, and things are becoming really terrifying and horrible there. And meanwhile, other things are happening that are good, right? There's all sorts of wonderful things that are happening. Why can't I think of wonderful things that are happening? What's a good thing that's happening right now? Uh, Friends are getting married, right? My friends are gonna be married soon, and that's a really wonderful thing. So today, what we're doing is the meanwhile poem. While you're on a trip, meanwhile, what's happening? And usually it's the trip, and I'm doing this X, Y, and Z, and meanwhile, this is happening. Um, it's probably good to get two different types of meanwhiles. Maybe a happy, maybe a sad, maybe two sads, right? Maybe two happies, right? As I'm here doing this, meanwhile, now I wouldn't choose Syria, and the reason I wouldn't choose Syria is it feels a little bit condescending and taking that event and using it something I'm not really terribly familiar with and using it to kind of enhance and say, isn't life great for me? I don't know, there's something about that I wouldn't do unless I'm from Syria. And then I can claim ownership to that thing. So in other words, I'd choose something that's actually personal to you in some way that you can do this. And also you can talk about with specificity. Um, Now I think about I had a trip in Yugoslavia, and I didn't know it, but it was the war in that made Yugoslavia into separate states was about to happen, and so as I was wandering around Yugoslavia, just kind of taking it easy with my family. Meanwhile, people were plotting genocide, right? And meanwhile, but also as I was doing that back home, I had a friend who was starting college for the first time, and meanwhile he was doing this. And so those two things, it's like it's a discussion of what my life is and what I'm missing out here, and should I feel guilt for that or joy for that, or what is it? Where is my place in this earth that has so much chaos? We had a student in the summer who wrote a really great meanwhile poem, and it was about she was up there in the mountains with us and just kind of being silent and writing poetry and doing all those things that are just so fun to do and so wonderful and so moving and growing. But meanwhile, her best friend was going through the death of her husband, and at the same time, something good was happening too. But it just turned out to be the most
She had a
powerful.
newborn baby too.
And a newborn baby. That's right. The person who was losing her husband was gaining her baby, and this was all happening while she was there with us, and it was an intense and a beautiful poem. So that's your job today is to write the meanwhile poem. What was happening while you're doing the other thing? It could be personal. I'd probably avoid the large political statements unless you were in some way personally involved. And thinking about it, I don't think I'd do that Yugoslavia poem. Not in the way that I described, because I really don't have enough access and enough personal experience with the war. I just got out of there and the war happened a couple of years later. What would I do? I would do when I was 15 and I went to um, Sequoia for that long backpacking trip. And meanwhile, back home, um, my friend was going through uh, bad. His parents were going through a bad breakup, and he was trying to figure out what he was going to do with the rest of his life and what this meant to him. And it was just very difficult for him. So that's the meanwhile poem. When you're done, post it down below. I'll see you tomorrow. 30 days until done.